All right, we'll go ahead and get started now while others are still joining in here. Prior to getting started, I wanted to kick it over to Darby Ashmore. He joined us today from MEEC. Darby, do you want to kind of say a few words first?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Brian. I just want to thank you and NFF as well as Cisco and Nell from Montgomery College for offering the webinar today. So MEEC does webinars Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays during the academic year. And it's great that you guys are willing to do this for us, as well as the conference, the MEEC conference, annual conference is on March 28th, and hopefully folks can attend. I know you guys submitted a topic, so and hopefully, that'll move through the process. And it's really a great day, and we look forward to presentations just like this. So thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Darby. All right, so today we're going to talk about two simple solutions to stop threats before they reach your end users. Prior to getting started, there are a couple housekeeping instructions to help you participate. All panelists are currently on mute. Please note that there is a Q&A section in the panel on the right side of the screen box to let us know that what we can cover in more detail. Linda will be helping us answer those questions as well as Ryan. They are on our panel board here. I'd like to also introduce you to Nell Feldman, IT Security Manager at Montgomery College, and our customer speaking about her experiences with NFF and Cisco Umbrella, as well as Ibrahim Darwish, a cybersecurity specialist with Cisco, who is going to show you how to secure your internet content and access usage. Ibrahim, next, please. All right, so I relate the key IT business challenges we'll highlight today to a door you cannot quite lock. We can only imagine the consequences of that vulnerability. Today, we'll show you how to securely lock the door and provide you control on who gains access to what and what they have access to. We have the ability to deliver support through Cisco Umbrella and Cisco Cloudlock, two highly impactful preventative solutions that come at a great value price point. A quote that from one of our customers shared is that Umbrella reduced infections by 98%, saving 1.7 months of user downtime per year, in addition to deploying Cisco Cloudlock to 125,000 employees in less than 5 minutes. I look forward to further elaborating upon those solutions and some compelling case studies. But first, next. If you are not familiar with Networking for Future, we are headquartered in Washington, D.C., and we've been delivering transformational IT business solutions for over 20 years. We are experts at providing a performance-focused first line of defense against internet threats and securing usage of your critical cloud applications. We will be there with you at the design stage, the implementation, and provide ongoing support. With our strategic partnerships and lifecycle approach, we ensure optimal performance improvement for your business. Here, just want to highlight a few of our clients, our little cheat sheet, our board here, and let you know that we are able to deliver our services to a wide range of industry verticals because we really take the time to understand our overall fit for business. And by the way, your performance improvement is how we measure our success. Go ahead, next, please. To ensure this performance improvement, Networking for Future understands the evolving ways in which organizations transact business and the impact of emerging technologies. Whether you've adopted a cloud infrastructure supported by Amazon or Rackspace or critical business applications residing in the cloud, such as Salesforce or G Suite, we all face the same challenges. There's more users, more devices, managed and unmanaged, accessing your cloud infrastructure, driving the need for more control and visibility. So all organizations using the cloud are facing a number of extremely difficult challenges. Constantly dealing with malware and ransomware. Though you have security products deployed across your network and endpoints, Attackers are always getting in. Your security team is constantly dealing with malware infections, gaps in visibility and coverage. You have, with all the different locations, the devices you need to protect, you lack the visibility into all your employees' internet activities. You also need to secure the usage of cloud applications, your Salesforce, Google Apps, Office 365, etc. As you know, the attackers are always attempting to compromise your users' identities. As far as your data breaches and compliance, you have the policies about what kind of data can be stored in the cloud and what kind of data can't, but you're not sure if people are following those rules. You might even know what people are uploading and what they're sharing. Cisco's cloud security is a comprehensive and complementary solution that includes both Cisco Umbrella and Cisco Cloudlock. Cisco Umbrella is the first line of defense against internet threats, while Cloudlock secures usage of the cloud. These two simple solutions combine to stop threats before they reach your users by providing you with the security when and where you need it. To give you an idea of what can be achieved, a customer shared with us that Umbrella cut his incident response time by 25 to 30%, while Cisco Cloudlock reduced the public exposure of confidential company assets by 62%. So now to give you a brief little overview here, I'd like to hand the ball over to Ibrahim. He's going to give you a deeper dive into Cisco Umbrella and Cloudlock solution.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. And here we go. I'm going to just go ahead and shift over to this next slide. And nice to meet everyone. I'm Ibrahim Darwish. I'm a cybersecurity system engineer here with Cisco. And we're really going to just talk through the technical side of Umbrella and some of Cloudlock as well. And we'll also be going through a demo of each. So I'm going to go ahead and start off about where Umbrella fits, talk a little bit about that, then we'll go to the demo stage and then move on to the Cloudlock product as well, and then the demo for that. So where Umbrella fits is, we call it our first line of defense. And why is that? It's because it leverages what is utilized in the internet today to allow computers to be able to communicate, which is DNS. And the reason why is because DNS is done before any payload even crosses your perimeter firewalls, for instance, right? You have to make that domain name request out for the IP address that your computer's interested in communicating with. So leveraging that, we're able to see a large amount of the world's data, use that and correlate that and have logical statistical models that we utilize based on the traffic observations we see. And we're able to correlate IP addresses, autonomous system numbers, domain names, and figure out attacker patterns. And we have data centers distributed all around the world, and that use Anycast IP routing addressing. So it helps us to at least route DNS traffic more efficiently as well. A lot of times you'll see it faster than your ISPs, the way they resolve DNS traffic. And so typically that's how it works. You usually have your ISP resolve your DNS traffic, and Umbrella, how it works is just you point your DNS forwarders on-prem to the Umbrella DNS resolvers. And that's really all there is to it in terms of setting up your protection across your schools. And so it starts with DNS, right? So like I said, it precedes that file execution and IP connection used by all devices, right? Everybody is going to be leveraging DNS to get out to the internet. And it's port agnostic, meaning that we're not going to care about the ports that it's using, especially for monitoring it on a device level. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the actual demo section now and walk through some of Umbrella's key features. So go ahead and switch the screen. And so this is the Umbrella dashboard here that we have opened up. And so really what I like to talk about here is the different types of deployments we can have. You can have, from a network perspective, you can have a network level deployment. You can have roaming clients living on the actual endpoint itself. And you can have what's called virtual appliances, which we'll talk about in a bit. And then the various types of network requests. So these are just the different types of network requests that are served over time as your users are accessing the internet, right? So we'll have total requests, which are just everything. Total blocks, which can consist of a policy-based block, maybe based on content application, or it may be a security-based block based on malware, command and control connections. And then we get more specific in terms of the types of security blocks we have. The blocked requests at the bottom, we're looking at by destination. We can see the different types of domains and how many times they were blocked. The various types of identities we support. So we have, roaming clients we can support. And this is support from a granular visibility perspective. So we can actually see from a client perspective what is accessing what domain. And so you can see Chromebook support and as well as Mac and Windows. And then from a type, just looking at the different types of requests that we see from a domain blocking and then from a URL perspective. The difference is we'll see URLs typically when we use what's called our intelligent proxy, which essentially Umbrella makes three decisions, right? It can either approve a domain to be resolved and return back your IP address, and your users will get to the website just fine. It can block that, return back a block page. They won't be able to access the domain they were trying to get to. Or there's the third option. If we're not sure about the domain from a security perspective, we can proxy it through. And this will give you full visibility into the URL, and that's why we have some block connections in the URL area. So that's what the intelligent proxy does, and it's intelligent and it's smart because it's only looking at those unknown connections, because we know the reputation of the good ones and the bad ones, but these are just the ones that we're not sure of. So that's when we're going to leverage that intelligent proxy to be able to get that granular information. And then we talked about the different types of deployment just a little bit, but this is how you would basically deploy Umbrella. You would just simply click Add, type in your network name. You have the IPv4 addresses of Umbrella's DNS resolvers listed here. And you just put in your public-facing IP address here, and then go ahead and save that. And then on your end, you're going to see on your DNS forwarders, you're going to point them towards these resolvers on Umbrella. So that's all there is to it to set up Umbrella from a coverage perspective of your entire campus, right? Anything facing behind that public-facing subnet. So that's from a basic perspective. So what that gives you is visibility into what traffic from my public IP address is going to what domain at what time, right? But you're not going to get user-level visibility or IP address level visibility, internal IP address level visibility. That's where you need the additional pieces of Umbrella to be able to get that increased and enhanced granular visibility into the different clients that are accessing the internet on your campus. And so we'll talk a little bit about roaming computers. Roaming computers are the agents that you can install on an endpoint, and it will help essentially bring that protection to your devices that are brought on and off-prem as well. So it extends the protection, extends that Umbrella coverage if users are taking their devices home. So that's where that comes into play. And so that's, and it's easy as just coming up here and downloading the roaming client to the actual endpoint itself. And you can fully support Windows, Mac OS X, and if you happen to running any Connect mobility client, you can add a Umbrella roaming security module to that, so you can consolidate the number of agents that you would have on your endpoints. So that's from a roaming client perspective. We also support iOS devices through an MDM integration, where we made a partnership with Apple, and we have an application known as the Cisco iOS Security Connector. And so that's going to correlate back with an MDM as well as Umbrella to be able to integrate iOS devices here and be able to apply policy effectively to those devices. And then we talked a little bit about IP address granular level visibility as well as username visibility. So to do that, you're going to need what's called the virtual appliance. And you can kind of see the different components here that are necessary, but we can run the virtual appliance for VMware ESXi or Hyper-V. And the bottom two pieces here are the scripts that are relevant and needed for your Active Directory to basically, one, to be able to monitor the different user connections coming onto Active Directory, and two, being able to correlate that data with Umbrella. So those are the necessary components for that to happen. that's really, and the purpose of that, and I'll actually go ahead and show it here. Deployment. I figure this diagram is actually really good to show for this, so I'll go ahead and show that right now. I like to show this diagram. So this kind of paints the picture of what the virtual appliance does. And really quick, its job is to correlate the IP address of the endpoint that's trying to get to a domain with an Active Directory credential. It takes that DNS query from that endpoint, encrypts it, and authenticates it with Umbrella and sends it up. And then anything that needs to be resolved on a local DNS server, it will conditionally forward that appropriately once you specify the domains within Umbrella to do that. And the way it works is it's going to leverage DHCP. So that way, because every client, most clients in your campus are going to leverage DHCP to get assigned a dynamic IP address. And through that, they're also getting information as to where to send DNS traffic. So you can basically manipulate that DNS forwarder field to forward DNS traffic on-prem to this virtual appliance, and then it will go ahead and forward it to Umbrella. And this way, you're able to correlate your Active Directory and credential information with an IP address internally. And then you'll be able to have the full visibility into, and actually, I'll go ahead and show what that looks like. So once you have that deployed, you're able to actually see, for instance, this is an Active Directory credential destination. You can see their internal IP address, the external, what type of category it was blocked here. And you can see the time and date. So that's the level of information. Once you have that full deployment, you're able to get all of that. Right? And then these are just roaming clients that have an agent installed. So you can see the various different types of clients we have. And so that's, and then also, sorry, I forgot to mention the Chromebook users. That's pretty easy to set up. You have a JSON file that you integrate with your admin console, and then the actual client software works by an extension and an application that you install on the actual endpoint itself. So I want to make sure that I made it clear that we do support Chromebook as well, because I know that's a popular way of monitoring domains with Umbrella as well from the client side. And yeah, from deployment perspective, that's really much it. And then we'll talk a little bit about the policies you can manipulate now. And so looking at a policy, the first thing you can affect are the identities that you're trying to protect, whether it's an actual entire group itself or specific users in that group. So I can apply a policy to specific users or the entire group itself. And then the various identities we discussed as well. Next, I like to show the security settings that we have. So these are the default security protections that come with it. By all means, you can enable the other ones. Some of the popular ones, obviously, malware, command and control callbacks, right? Phishing attacks, so that way if the user clicks on a misleading link that looks like c1st0.com, it will block that, right? Instead of cisco.com. And then crypto mining is another one that I like to talk about, because now we have, bad actors out there trying to consolidate CPU power. And so how they do that is they just basically take it from different endpoints, different areas, different servers, and consolidate that CPU power to be able to mine cryptocurrency that they have. So that's how crypto mining works, is it uses a pool of memory and processing power to make that work. So that's another one of those that we can block, so that way we're able to cut the connection between those mining pools and the victims of these types of attacks. Next up, I'd like to talk about the content settings. So you can have it, very generic in terms of high, moderate, and low, or you can customize your policy and specify specific categories that you can block on. For instance, adware, alcohol, or any type of illegal activity. You can get in terms of categories, we can just select one and it'll follow those categories, right? You can see that there's just so much in here, even social networking, search engines, etc., right? From an application perspective, we also are able to work on those from an anonymizer I know these are popular for students to like circumvent systems. So we're able to, we have ways to block applications that are known anonymizers like ExpressVPN, NordVPN, as well as UltraSurf, which are, sometimes pretty evasive, but we're able to work on that. And then from a destination list perspective, we're able to also specify domains and whitelist and blacklist them. So you can see we can specify Reddit in a list by itself or bandwidth hogs and apply those. File inspection is another aspect I like to talk about, where we talked about the intelligent proxy earlier, where we're looking at those unknown connections. We're able to also inspect that file through our AMP and antivirus detection engines, and then make a disposition about that file on the other end of that connection based on our intelligent proxies connection that is analyzed there. And then the default block page as well. We'll take a look at that. We also have the ability to enforce safe search and modify the types of logging that we get. In terms of a block page appearance, this is really what you're going to get and what you can manipulate on a block page. You can either use the default message, a customized message. You can redirect users to a specific URL, or you can even allow them to contact an administrator from the block page, and you can put in an email address where they can reach out. We also support various integrations with different security products such as Alien Vault, Checkpoint, AMP Threat Grid, and other third parties as well, to be able to enrich your intelligence. From a reporting perspective, we showed a little bit of that here, where you saw the different types of activity. You're able to see the different proxying mechanisms here. Let me actually pull up one that's proxied. There we go. So these are what proxied connections look like, right? We're able to determine more about that based on, as you can see, here's the full URL visibility. We're able to see the executable and then determine by AMP, our advanced malware protection, that's a potentially unwanted application. It's some type of adware, so we're going to block that because it passed through our intelligent proxy. We're able to get visibility into that executable. The other piece of reporting I like to show is the app discovery. What this is I typically describe it as a way to be able to see the different types of apps that are running, right? The different types of apps that are being accessed by your users. And essentially it falls into a few buckets here. First bucket it falls into is the unreviewed apps. And then based on those unreviewed apps, we're able to classify them as under audit, not approved, or approved in terms of our policy. And then the enforcement side of that really comes into play if you can actually block the app. So it'll notify you here if you can actually make a block on the app, and if you cannot, there's a way through support that we're able to manage that as well, so we can get that blocked. And so you can see the various types of applications we have. Obviously these are more popular ones, but even ones that are unreviewed, that are not as popular, you can read about that we're not so sure of, maybe whatever optimizing testing is, right? We can see the risk score, an explanation of that risk score, what that means to the user from different perspectives, as well as the app URL, the statistics of it, the different types of identities that were accessing it, when it was first detected being accessed and when it was last detected being accessed. And then you can get that identity level visibility. So we could see some iOS devices were going to that domain and accessing that application, and these other various identities that are on-prem as well as roaming clients. And that's mainly what I wanted to show from the Umbrella dashboard. So now I'm going to go ahead and pivot back to the slides. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Cloudlock. And so Cloudlock really covers mainly three, I like to throw it into three buckets, right? User and entity behavior analysis, cloud data loss prevention, and then application firewall and application discovery, which is very similar to what we saw in Umbrella, that app discovery aspect of it. So the user and entity behavior analytics part of it really focuses on compromised accounts, insider threats. What are some ways we can think about compromised accounts, right? How are we able to tell when a user's account is being compromised? So we'll look at anomalies, maybe what are some other risks, right? You see a login from Chicago, then 1 minute later you see a login from Belgium, right? That's inconsistent. So you can set policies to track the velocity at which that user would move between those 2 points, and or you could specify in terms of time range, right? You can make it flexible in terms of what you would want to see, what parameters you would track to be able to know between maybe this time and this time, would that user really have moved that quickly, right? And those are like indicative of a compromised account. And we basically use that to be able to combat against that. And we'll talk a little bit about those policies that you can manipulate in the demo. Data loss prevention, data exposures and linkages. We can also look at the types of files being shared, whether it's PCI compliance related or HIPAA related, meaning we don't want to put out identifiable health information or financial information out in the cloud. So we're able to look at data exposures and linkages, as well as maybe it was a file that we only wanted teachers to look at, or not shared externally outside of the domain, right? We can do that as well. So we're able to look at those types of violations, as well as maybe compliance violations with certain criteria like HIPAA and PCI. And then the shadow IT part, we talked a little bit about Umbrella, but Cloudlock has a similar ability to look at applications, discover them, and then display that to the user and help combat against that shadow IT initiative, shadow IT in the industry, because with shadow IT, we lack the visibility in terms of what applications our users are going to. And so this helps us fight against that and assess the risks affiliated with that. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the Cloudlock demo. So just give me one moment to pull that up here. All right, so we're done with Umbrella. Let's move to Cloudlock now. And so with Cloudlock, I'm mainly going to talk a little bit about the, we'll go ahead and just highlight the different use cases. I really want to focus around that. But essentially with incidents, I like to start here, just kind of look at these, because it kind of gives you the various things that we look at in terms of what we could see, what we act upon, what we alert upon. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and go from there. And so I'm going to go ahead and search for an incident that I think would be good here to show. So 1 second. There it is. So I'm going to go ahead and search for 553680. Let's take a look at that one. Here we go. So this one utilizes Okta. All right. So what I want to show is really the relation to the activity that was going on here. So this one shows the incident in the location of Shanghai. So I'll go ahead and do show activity. And 1 second here. Here we go. So you can see activity from China is outside of whitelisted countries. So this violated a policy that was set in terms of where we're allowed to log in from, because the whitelisted policy states that, you know, the United States is one of the countries that are whitelisted. So we would expect the user to sign in from there. But they didn't sign into Okta from there. They signed in from China. So it means that it seems that there was a compromise on that. And so we can actually take a closer look at this by going to the policy name. And so this is the policy name, offsite activity. And here you can specify context to be able to look at the different types of platforms we support. So Cloudlock is a CASB, a Cloud Access Security Broker. And how it works is it utilizes APIs to be able to communicate out to these different platforms. So if you have Office 365, Google, like G Drive, G Suite, Dropbox, Box, OneLogin, Salesforce, these different applications we're able to actually apply policy to and protect users that are utilizing those applications. So that's really what Cloudlock is all about at its core with these different SaaS applications. What can we do to monitor user activity there? How about data exposures there? So we're securing those vectors of threats. And so this is the whitelist and blacklist policy that we were looking at in terms of countries. You can also go ahead and go to the events page. And this is just talking about different types of events we can apply this to. The velocity, this is what I was talking about in terms of miles per hour. And this is where you can, if an activity is like triggered by a user account in a very short time frame with a large geographical distance like we talked about, then that would essentially be a compromise incident. And so that's how we would enable a policy here to look at the miles per hour, that's too fast, or the actual distance itself. And we can also limit the evaluation of, the events that happen to a certain time period as well. Right, maybe we want to look at it only for a specific time. We could also specify users that we want to monitor content on specifically, or maybe all of them. And we can also use Google OUs, organizational units, to be able to get those users as well. And then you can also create exceptions to that. And then, of course, we have whitelisted IP addresses and blacklisted IP addresses you could specify as well. And then let me move on to here for 1 second. We're going to go to policies. So you can get a list of the policies here. And let me just find one. Look up. There we go. And this is really what I wanted to show you, the response action. So you can also, with a policy, you can set criteria. So you have detection criteria and you have response actions. So the detection criteria is similar to what we were talking about. How do we detect what's going on? Whether it's in content, context, right? And the different types of things we can act on, right? It's not just velocity of the user. We talked about securing the actual data itself to exposures. So I wanted to also show this aspect of it too. So now we talked about the movement of a user from one location to another, logging in from one location to another, and showing that that's not consistent with our policy. So that's something we want to act on. And so the other aspect of it is, we talked about it, specific file types, right? Maybe I want to scan file names for documents in PDF, but not spreadsheets and presentations, right? You could specify file sizes in your policy as well, object type, right? What are the policies that you set in your organizations for a secure environment? What would you expect your users to be doing in these applications? How would you expect the exposure to be in these different applications? So, and these are platform-specific exposures as well, these settings that you get. So depending on the application you have, it'll be a little bit different, but nonetheless, you have that experience there to be able to specify that. Going back to what I was talking about earlier, the response action, we have a number of different actions you can choose from depending on the policy you have set in place. Let me find this one should do it. Yep. So we can just look at different response actions that we can have, right? And you can set the workflow here. And just looking at the different types of applications that we have and the different response actions. We can quarantine files, revoke file share, copy a file, disable it, download, print it, copy it, right? Transfer ownership. Just various types of ways to manipulate files as well. So I thought it's definitely important to show that. So mainly I wanted to show those two use cases. Those are the two most important to me for Cloudlock in terms of data exposure and as well as being able to look at compromises on credentials. And so now I'm going to turn this back over to the PowerPoint. And we'll go ahead and wrap things up here in terms of the technology. So From an Umbrella and Cloudlock perspective, we talked about both. These are the ways that we address the challenges that we talked about earlier, that Brian was talking through, right? And we address it in mainly these 5 ways, right? Visibility and control over all internet activity in the Umbrella. We're able to stop those connections to malicious internet destinations, look into the forensics, being able to investigate attacks, internet-wide, right? Prevent those C2 callbacks. And then from the Cloudlock side, look at OAuth cloud apps that are connected, protect those cloud accounts from the compromises that we talked about, like that moving the user location, be able to audit cloud logs, look at it from a data risk and ensure compliance, and then prevent cloud-native OAuth attacks as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Nell.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I'm happy to be here today to talk about Cisco Umbrella and our experience with it. We've been a customer just about a year, and it was, we're just like everyone else. We're under constant phishing attack, and our users are clicking on malicious links. And we thought NFF brought us the idea of this product to attack that, and it was really revealing. When we did the proof of concept, we put it in audit mode, so we were just watching what would be blocked if we chose to block those security categories, and right away we saw all kinds of command and control activity and malware and such, and so we immediately, during the POC, put it in blocking mode, and it was really seamless to our users because they, a lot of that activity is happening in the background. They don't even see the blocks. It's only when they overtly go to one of those pages that they might get that block screen. We did initially find a couple of workstations that were doing crypto mining. We cleaned that up. We use it on a, it's really acting in the background as a passive protection, and so it's just comforting to know it's there. And then when we do get phishing attacks that Cisco hasn't categorized yet, links that they haven't categorized yet, then we can proactively put in custom blocks until they've caught up. And very rarely do we get false positives, but when they do, Cisco's been very responsive in unblocking those after a review. It's very easy to configure, as Ibrahim said. We just pointed our DNS forwarders to Umbrella, and so we get the benefit of the DNS service as well as the policy configuration. We're blocking all of the security, not all, I think, but most of the security activity, malware, crypto mining, command and control, phishing. And then about halfway, maybe 6 months ago, we added newly seen domains. A lot of websites that pop up could be malicious, and no one has time to assess them. So the newly seen domain, if I understand correctly, blocks for the first 24 hours, and then if it's not categorized, it'll open it up. So we've I think, stopped some things using that category as well. There's some really good reports. We do weekly executive reports to see what's being blocked, how many sites are being blocked, and I'm just really happy with it. It's just another layer in our defense in depth strategy, and happy to take any questions if anybody has any. But we're really happy to have it. I should mention, we're not using we're not using the virtual appliance or the intelligent proxy. We're just focusing on the DNS piece. It would be nice to have the AD integration to be able to see immediately whose workstation is being, or whose login is being blocked. But we do have some other methods to trace that down, but that's the license model we went with. Brian, anything else I can add?
Yep. No, that was great. Thanks, Nell.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, thank you, Nell. That was amazing. I appreciate that. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk about the other 2 case studies, and then I'm going to pass it back to Brian after that. So there are 2 more case studies I wanted to talk through. Louisville Independent School District is another one that was looking at Umbrella, and pretty much went for it, and they have 69 campuses, about 59,000 students. And the story behind this one is they had tax dollars approved for about $100 million in technology. And so they wanted to make sure they made the right investment, the right time, and really put their money where it needs to be. So they had a specific budget they were looking at, and they want to make sure they put their money in the right place. So their challenges were, they had students accessing unsuitable content, they had ransomware, phishing attacks, command and control callbacks. They wanted to make sure that they can effectively secure that. And so, they have a distributed system of campuses, and they really wanted something that would protect them from those campuses as well as at home. And so they saw how DNS security works to proactively block threats and ease the deployment steps for that. And they utilize something called a bit site score, and what that is I think of it like a credit score for security. It's not a Cisco thing, but it's an industry third party that does these assessments and determines a score of your security posture based on a point system. So once they had Umbrella implemented, they improved their score immediately by 70 points in BitSite. And it cut their remediation time down and really decreased that command and control traffic and that phishing traffic, so that way they can effectively fight the fight that they needed to. And then the other use case I wanted to highlight was University of Oklahoma, where they looked into both Cloudlock and Umbrella, about 36,000 Cloudlock users, 6,000 Umbrella users. And the story there is Oklahoma University moved to Office 365, and they wanted a way to regulate and secure content in that SaaS application. And so another thing you have to think about is with universities, a lot of times there is collaboration between private and public sector research committees, and especially there, you might have something valuable in terms of your research that you've done, and you want to protect it, right? So we want to make sure that we're securing both from the DNS perspective as well as these cloud applications we're using. And so just think about the amount of money that could be lost based on lost government contracts, right? So we want to make sure that that's secure. That's really important to us, right? And so, you think about today, you have account compromises, a mixture of cloud services that we're using. So they had not just O365, but they have Dropbox, Salesforce. So they had a good mixture of SaaS applications that we could apply policy to and monitor, and using Cloudlock. So that way we can govern that cloud environment with the different SaaS applications they have. And so upon doing that, they were able to lock down nearly 200 compromised accounts and prevented the repeated compromise that was happening. They were also looking for a secure content filtering solution, and they saw that Umbrella was a solution because it looks at a large percentage of our global DNS traffic, and then it draws from our industry-leading threat intelligence, Talos, which are basically more than over 300 different security researchers that essentially reverse engineer malware and break it apart and implement the intelligence in our various security products, so that way we're up to date on the latest threats. So given that, we're able to effectively secure against the latest threats that are happening. And so again, also in their case, they had a BitSite score, and it was increased as well due to the decrease in malicious activity. That's really what I wanted to highlight there. And so I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you, Brian.
Great, thanks, Ibrahim. So wrapping up here's just a list of a couple, some real customer results here. But the key takeaways from this are, with Umbrella, it's providing that protection for end users wherever they are, the most scalable security service available, and hands down the easiest security solution to deploy and manage, and very cost effective as well. Cloudlock, you want to secure your multi-cloud applications by detecting, blocking, and remediating any of the malicious extensions, and it can do it very, very quickly. Go to the next, Ibrahim. So for next steps here, obviously you can reach out to me. We're going to go to questions here in a minute. I think we only have a few here, but just here's my contact information. If you want to see any further demonstration or proof of value, we can provide that for you. As Darby had mentioned in the beginning, I do have this recorded. I will share this out to all the participants. I'm also following up with an additional webinar on February 21st that's going to be focused on your physical security and safer schools. And then as Darby mentioned, the 11th Annual MEEC Conference is on March 28th. We do have a booth as well, as we will be presenting there as well. So please stop by and see us. So it looks like here, let me just go to the questions. Looks like we have one question here. What was the level of your user personal data is exposed to the Umbrella proxy since content is scanned for compromise? Ibrahim, do you want to try to take a shot at that one?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the intelligent proxy, it's really looking at, from a data perspective, any domain that's unknown, right? One that we're not sure of, it's going to proxy that connection through. And on behalf of the user that's making that domain request. And so if there's a malicious file there, it's going to look at that file on the other side through that proxy. But again, the proxy is not going to automatically block something or allow something. It's going to actually go through the mechanisms to be able to detect the content at the other side on behalf of the user. From a privacy perspective, I don't have a direct answer to that. But from the way it works, that's how it works. I'm not sure if anyone else on the call knows that aspect of it.
Then we had one more here. How does Umbrella handle an offline attack, especially when the Umbrella global network cannot be reached?
Yeah, that's another great question. Well, I'll mention this. So in terms of a user leaving the premise, that's where the roaming client protection comes into play. From a global network, if the global network was down, I'm not sure that, we could effectively protect from a DNS perspective, because that's how we're looking at the traffic itself, right? We're taking in the DNS correlation and using that to fuel our decision making there.
All right. If there's no other further questions, I believe we're wrapped up here. I appreciate everybody's time, and thank you to all the panelists for joining in today.